Go ahead, keep going. Defensive coordinator, Zac Alley. Greg?
So, Zach, before we look to the future, look a little bit to this past game. Give me your analysis defensively, good, bad. What'd you think both sides?
Yeah, I thought we were okay. Tackling was pretty good. They weren't able to really break anything, so, I thought the effort was good because, it's not hard to get there when he's like 3 yards down the field. But I thought our guys tried to play physical, tried to get knocked back at the point of attack. I thought we gave up 2 kind of explosives, you would say, just off communication errors. That was frustrating. I really got on them for that because that's just every single play you should communicate with everybody around you to make sure that you're doing your job correctly. And, one guy thought he was on one side. He was actually on the other side. Next thing you know, you give up a big play that shouldn't have happened. So that would probably be the biggest thing we've got to improve on is just our communication and execution. Obviously, coming up this week, we'll have much more of a test.
Do a lot in terms of schematic stuff and different things. A couple guys that played a little bit that may have showed up unexpectedly. Curtis Jones abandoned on some of your packages. Can you evaluate his performance?
Yeah, I tried every week. We're going to do whatever I feel like is best to win. I really believe that we were kind of studying them last year. We're built more of a 3-down overhang team and Bandit. That bandit spot, Curtis has done a great job all camp. You got to send somebody out there first. So Braden went out there first, and I think Curtis in the second drive. And they basically split reps throughout the game. And obviously, getting Kurt game experience is great because he didn't play a whole lot last year, and he's got a chance to really make an impact and be a guy you can use a bunch of different places. Because he's played linebacker before, so he's pretty good in the drops and moving around some of that. Very natural back there. So gave us some juice off the edge, and was really happy to see him perform.
Chase and Reed handle the linebacker responsibilities on Saturday?
I thought they did well. They missed maybe 1 or 2 things I wish they'd gotten correct. But overall, they're pretty in tune to what we're doing and how we're doing it and the different ways that, we want to set up the run fits, the coverages, communication. I thought they did a pretty good job across the board of getting done what we expected them to do.
Did you learn much from what happened in the secondary in the game?
I think so. They sure as heck got it from me in the meeting on Sunday. So I think they understand the standard of how we have to do things. As long as if we're all wrong, we're right kind of mentality. At least if you talk, somebody's not wide open. They might make a competitive play. That's going to happen. They're on scholarship too over there, no matter who you're playing. So occasionally they're going to catch a ball. They're going to make an explosive. Something's going to happen to, get a big play first down, and we got to live to fight another day. But the busts usually result in touchdowns because nobody's there, and so that can't happen. And that's just a communication error.
Playing a quarterback that can run and throw the way this guy can, what's the best way to come in that game? Do you have a spy? Do you play more zone in the secondary? What's the best way to defend them?
Oh, that's a great question. Nobody really did it last year or this season. He kind of ran over everybody. I think that it's probably a blend of all those things. Both making sure we keep him in the pocket as far as the rush. Try and keep him from scrambling, out and around. I think we looked at he's a top 5 quarterback in the country when he gets outside the pocket. He's unbelievable once he's on the move. So do everything we can to keep him in there, and that'll involve the D-line. It'll involve some spy players. It'll be man zone. Anything I feel like we can do to corral him.
You mentioned that you want 3 turnovers a game, and that should take you on success, top 10, and all that for the defense. Didn't happen against RMU. Were there missed opportunities there? How do you evaluate that beyond just the number that you get? And then how do you try to put that together in a road environment that's going to be such a packed house? Is it still the same? Do you have to do things in practice where you're pumping in music while the game is going on, or just because the crowd might be really that loud?
Well, usually, I guess for us on our side of the ball, it's louder here than it is anywhere we are on the road. So that's not as big of a factor, I think, for our side as it is for the offense when they go on the road. But we had forced 2 more fumbles. One of them, the referees blew dead, and they didn't let the play continue. We recovered that one, and then we forced one later in the game, and it literally just bounced right back in the guy's hands. And I thought we could have probably, got on it and scrummed it, but we tried. They ended up giving it to them, and it was the end of the game. I'm not sure I think the referee's trying to go home too. So they'll know, on that one as far as did he get it back? Did he not? It was close. So. But those are critical times. We've got to make plays. And in a game now that'll be, close down to the wire like this week, we're going to have to make those. We're going to get those balls to the offense and create extra possessions. And, turnover margin is the number one indicator of winning. If you win the turnover margin, you're probably going to win more times than you're going to lose. So we've got to emphasize that all the time. And that's attacking the ball, both, when they're running it and confusing the quarterback, hopefully a little bit on the pass game and getting them to throw you 1 or 2.
Roster, I don't know what you make of it. Their running backs got pretty good size. I think close to 220 each. And I was counting through here. I think 7 skill guys, 200 plus, and then he got 2 big tight ends. So power conference type size with their skill guys, right? Yeah,
I think they're a really good football team. There's a reason they won the MAC last year, and they gave Rutgers all they wanted last week. The back's probably an NFL player, just like the quarterback. I mean, he's a downhill physical guy. Was a 2-year starter for them, transferred to Minnesota, played sparingly, came back. And they've got some really good players in the receiving corps. I really feel that. They had an elite, slot last year. They've replaced him with another elite slot that played on the edge. And they do a great job of getting those guys in space and getting them open and letting them make plays. So we obviously got a big challenge this week. I think they do a great job across the board. And I was impressed with the tight ends against Rutgers. I thought that they played physical. They caught a couple critical balls, got a first down, got a touchdown for them. And, we got to do a good job of corralling all those guys this week.
You mentioned no one's been able to kind of stop the quarterback and kind of dual threat that he is. What kind of advantage is it for you, though, to have Rich Rod's offense to practice against? Because if any coach, defensive coordinator is going to be able to do it, it might be you, based on this situation.
Yeah, I think that I might see if I can steal Khalil or Scotty or somebody for 10 minutes, give us a look, run around in circles on us, hopefully down there for some. So, but obviously they run the quarterback a ton as far as the true quarterback run game our offense does, and they do some of it at Ohio. He makes a lot of big plays on some of the scrambles and things like that. Those worry me more than anything. Is he drops back, it's not there, and he takes off running, and he's got 10 yards from the next closest guy. So I'd say it's definitely helpful, but it's still slightly different.
Rich says you guys have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. As a defense, what do you do to ensure that's the case?
Well, I can get a little crazy at practice sometimes. I'm a believer that, if it's the most important play of my career on this day, on Tuesday, on the 3rd rep of the 2nd period, it will be for them. If the standard is the same for how you practice and what you do every single play as it is in the game, then there's no change. That rep feels that, they feel that stress of what's happening. And I'm a believer you can create that in practice, and every play has got to be to the, dialed up to 10. That it's the most important thing they've done, and if we don't make the tackle here, you ain't making it in the game, so you better make it here. And I think we instilled that. I'm just wired kind of like that.
How do you structure your practice when you know you got a mobile quarterback? You always hear defensive coordinators, first thing you want to know, does the quarterback run? How do you structure that? How much time do you devote to preparing for that part of the game?
We'll do here or there. We're gonna tell the quarterback to scramble. The scout team guy, even if maybe it wouldn't happen on that particular rush. Just to get the feel of it. And then honestly, I think our guys do a good job of understanding what we want to get done over there, and we'll do some natural scrambling in all force. They study. I give him credit. Scott Keene kind of does a lot of our scout team work, and he studies them as much as I do. He wants the mannerisms to be the same. He wants it to look the same. He wants to do everything he can to, help us be the best defense we can be. And those guys are valuable. They're incredibly valuable. Our scout team does a great job, and I think they accept that challenge, and hopefully they feel that from us.
How do you create the idea that the 3rd play of the 4th session in practice is the most important play ever? How do you get that across to a bunch of players who, it's practice?
I think it starts with me, the intensity I create, that it's never good enough. It's never to the standard of what we're looking for. It's never going to be, we're always can strive to be better. You don't play a perfect game. I've never had one anyway. And so for me, it's the thought process of every day we go out there, if you're not doing everything you can on this play to do exactly what you're supposed to do the right way, then in the game, it's not going to happen. And I've seen that. I don't think there's, this guy's a gamer. That ain't a thing. The guys that have success in practice have success in the game. And so I create that mindset of, I told him after the game, I said, hey, listen, if you're a guy that, man, I wish I'd played more, well, then do better in practice, because I'm going to play the guys that make plays in practice. I think Peyton Manning said that. They asked him, he said, hey, who do you decide who to throw it to? It was on like one of the Hard Knocks back in the day. And he said, well, it matters a little bit what the defense is doing, but I usually throw the ball to guys to get open in practice. Same thing's true for us.
First game also for the coaching staff in terms of sideline communication and all those things. I know you work on in the preseason, but substitution patterns, did everything go just as you wanted, or is that still always a little bit of a work in progress too?
I think it's always a work in progress, because week in and week out, guys get hurt, things change, and you may not be exactly the same number of plays wise. You are trying to get a guy this game versus that game. How did he practice during the week? Did he earn more reps this week? Did he not? So I think it's always a work in progress, but I don't think we had any issues, in the first game. It seemed pretty smooth as far as, getting guys in and out.
They were pretty balanced. I mean, against Rutgers, 239 yards passing, 201. Of course, the QB run was a part of that. The challenges of facing a balanced offense.
Yeah, they do a really good job of being 50-50 in almost every area. As you can tell, it's very intentional to how they call the game, how they operate, to be in that kind of, 40 to 60% on everything they do. It just makes you read your keys and do your job. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm going to emphasize this week is we always got to do our job and have great eyes. If you do that, you got a real chance of winning. If they let you get distracted and you're looking at the wrong things, you're staring at the quarterback, we should be looking at the slot receiver. You're gonna mess up, and it's gonna be pass when you thought it was run. And that's something we've got to do a good job of this week because of how balanced they are in most situations.
Chris Filippo got a good bit of playing time for a true freshman. What have you seen out of him?
I think Chris can be a great player. Still obviously young, first reps in a live game, and he was hurt in the spring, so he was coming from an injury from high school, so he has really only gotten reps starting in the fall. But good to see him go out there and execute. He's got all the physical tools to be a great player, and he cares. It matters to him. He's very smart, and so now it's just a matter of getting them that experience to feel confident to continue to play. But I'm sure he'll be a contributor throughout the year.
How important is first down when you're playing a quarterback like this? Getting him behind the chain.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people miss in general. I remember Chase Wilson asked me when I got here, he said, Coach, man, you'll bring 6 guys on 1st and 10. I said, yeah, because 2nd and 12 is harder than 2nd and 2. And so we want to knock them backwards consistently and put them in disadvantaged situations because you get them more one-dimensional. It's just you're limited on your play calls on 3rd and 12 compared to 3rd and 1. I feel better in 3rd and 12 most of the time than 3rd and 1. So we want to win 1st down so we can win 2nd down so we can win 3rd down and get off the field.
Zach, what does Navarro do for them in the red zone? He had just a ton of rushing touchdowns there last year, but they scored a lot through the air or on the ground otherwise.
Very efficient. I think we were laughing today. I don't know how many red zone plays it was in the breakdown, but it wasn't many. When they get down there, they score, and they do a good job of it. So obviously they like running him, and it just goes up as he gets closer to the goal line. Plus one run game is something that you see from a lot of teams down there that have got that kind of ability. I've been studying like hell the Jacksonville State film from last year. I like a lot of the things they did to him in the bowl game. In the second half in particular, they really shut them down. And that's the closest thing we've got to how I feel like they're going to play, versus our offense and how the game might look. So they did some good things as far as, kind of stopping him and preventing that. But they do a good job, and they're trying to get the ball in their best players' hands when it matters the most.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.